I'll never forget the moment I knew my life had cracked wide open. It was a quiet night in our Columbus apartment, the kind where the television hums low, filling the silence with canned laughter. I was slouched on the couch, one leg dangling over the armrest, staring at some Netflix crime show I'd already forgotten the name of. The glow flickered across the room, catching the chipped paint on the walls. Sandra was in the shower, the water's faint hiss seeping through the thin drywall of sound I'd tuned out years ago. Her phone sat on the coffee table, screen dark, until it buzzed. Once, twice. Then a sharp, insistent rattle like a wasp trapped in a jar. I shifted, glancing over. The screen lit up, a preview flashing. "Hey coach, what you up to? Still thinking about earlier? When's next time? Send me a pic. Lloyd." The name stabbed through me. My gut twisted, cold sweat prickling my neck. Who the hell was Lloyd? My heart kicked up, thudding loud enough to drown out the television. I sat there, frozen, the remote slipping in my damp grip. The shower cut off. Footsteps padded closer. Sandra stepped out, towel slung around her neck, damp hair clinging to her shoulders. She smelled like that coconut shampoo she loved sharp, sweet, slicing through the stale air. She grabbed the phone, her thumb swiping the screen. A smirk flickered gone fast, but I saw it. "Your phone's going nuts," I said, aiming for casual. My voice came out tight, a string pulled too taut. She didn't look up. "Band kid, they're freaking out about state finals." I swallowed, throat dry as sandpaper. "Why is a student texting you that?" Her eyes flicked to me, sharp with that annoyed glint I knew too well. "Seriously, Neil? It's 2025. Team app. I'm their coach, it's normal." She tossed her hair, water droplets spattering the floor, and turned toward the bedroom. "You wouldn't get it. You barely know what an app is." The jab landed, stinging. I didn't bite back, just sat there, hands clenched, staring at the television. The detective was yelling something, but it was white noise. My mind spun, replaying that message. Lloyd. Earlier. Pick. It didn't fit. Sandra lived on her phone work, she'd say. Always work. I'd bought it every time. Now, doubt slithered in, cold and heavy. I thought of her handing me coffee the day we met, that warm smile lighting up her face. She'd been all in back then. Now, distant, secretive, smirking at some guy's text. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. The television flickered, but I wasn't watching. My eyes locked on the coffee table, that empty spot where her phone had buzzed. Something had shifted, and I couldn't unfeel it. I met Sandra years ago, hauling a stack of catalogs into her school. It was a crisp fall morning in Columbus, the air sharp enough to sting my cheeks, leaves crunching underfoot like brittle paper. The school parking lot was chaos scars crammed into every space, kids weaving through them, their shouts and laughter bouncing off the brick building. I was wrestling with a box of brochures from my education supply company, sweat prickling my forehead despite the chill, when I saw her striding across the asphalt. She moved with purpose, head high, ponytail swinging like a metronome. Her boots clicked on the pavement, cutting through the noise. I thought, who walks like that at 8 a.m.? She stopped in front of me, eyeing the teetering box. "You look like you could use a hand," she said, her voice warm, offering help like it was a gift, not charity. Before I could mutter a refusal, she scooped up half the stack. "Lead the way." "Thanks," I managed, stumbling after her into the school. The halls smelled like floor wax and cafeteria pizza, a greasy tang that clung to the air. She talked as we walked about the weather, the kids, some band competition on the horizon. I nodded, half dazed, caught up in her energy. She was like a live wire, sparking with every word. By the time we dumped the catalogs in the office, I was grinning like a fool, the morning stress gone. That became our thing. I'd roll up with textbooks or samples, and she'd materialize with coffee or a donut, her smile hitting me like a punch to the chest. One afternoon, as I loaded empty boxes into my truck, she sauntered over, hands in her pockets. "Hey, want to swap numbers?" she asked, casual as if she'd suggested grabbing a burger. My pulse tripped. I fumbled my phone out, fingers clumsy. "Yeah, sure, why not?" She laughed a bright, wind chime sound, typed her number in, and just like that, we were dating by the next week. Our first date was at a diner downtown, the kind with sticky vinyl booths and coffee that never ran out. She leaned across the table, cradling her mug, talking about her band kids like they were her world. "You should have seen them at regionals," she said, eyes gleaming. "Nailed every note. They're gonna take state. I can feel it." I sipped my coffee, letting her passion wash over me. She was driven, alive in a way I wasn't used to. I told her about my sales gig, my dad, my thing for old westerns. She smirked, teasing, "You're such a grandpa." But her foot nudged mine under the table, and I felt my face heat up. We got married a year later, a small gig at the community center. Her band parents packed the folding chairs, cheering like we were rock stars. I stood at the altar, palms slick, watching her glide down the aisle in a white dress that caught the light. She was a vision, all lace and grace. We danced to some slow, sappy tune, her head resting on my shoulder, and I thought, this is forever. But there were signs, even then. She'd slip away to take work calls, her phone buzzing like a tether to somewhere else. At the reception, I caught her staring out the window, expression blank. "You okay?" I asked. She blinked, flashed a smile. "Just thinking about the kids' next routine," she said. But her gaze slid past me. I chalked it up to stress. She loved her job, her kids. I was proud of that. Now I sit in our dim apartment, the television flickering with a show I'm not watching. Those memories cut like glass, every laugh and touch poisoned by that text from Lloyd. I stare at the coffee table, at the empty spot where her phone buzzed with his name. My mind spins, hunting for the moment it all broke. Maybe it was never solid, and I was too smitten to notice. I glance at our wedding photo on the shelf, her smiling, me glowing. It's a lie now, a snapshot of a story I misread. The laughter from that day rings in my ears, faint and hollow, like a tune I can't quite place. I couldn't face Sandra that night, not with Dad's diagnosis crashing down on me. The doctor's voice replayed in my head. Stage 4 lung cancer, a year, maybe less. Dad sat there, jaw tight, refusing hospice. "I'm dying at home," he croaked, his voice rough as sandpaper. Mom had passed 5 years ago from a stroke, and I'd been a rebellious mess back then, skipping school, talking back. I owed him this much. So I arranged hospice nurses. But after my delivery shifts, I'd head to his suburban house, where the air reeked of antiseptic and the faint rot of decline. The place felt like it was already grieving. Dad's room was shadowy, curtains blocking the afternoon light. I'd sit by his bed, the television glowing with old westerns he adored. "You remember this one?" he'd ask, a skeletal finger jabbing at the screen. I'd nod, faking a smile, though the stories all ran together. It wasn't about films. It was about being there, anchoring him with something familiar. Sandra helped when I pleaded, showing up with brisk efficiency, adjusting his pillows or sorting his meds. But her eyes stayed glued to her phone, thumb flicking across the screen, a secretive smile playing on her lips. I'd catch her texting in the doorway, ignoring Dad's wheezing breaths. "You okay?" I'd ask, my voice edged. She'd look up, startled. "Yeah, just work," she'd say, pocketing the phone. I choked back the doubts clawing at me. One night, I was feeding Dad soup, the broth spilling onto his chin. Sandra was in the kitchen, supposedly making tea. Then I heard either soft, private laugh. My hand tightened on the spoon. "Who's that?" Dad murmured. I wiped his chin, shrugging. "Probably a student. Band stuff." He nodded, gaze drifting back to the television. But I couldn't shake it. I set the bowl aside and walked to the kitchen. Sandra leaned against the counter, phone in hand, fingers flying. "Who are you texting?" I asked, my tone sharp. She met my eyes, brows lifting. "A parent. About the competition." Her voice was cool, challenging me to dig deeper. I didn't just nodded, teeth gritted, and returned to Dad. Months dragged on, and Dad faded, his skin sagging like an empty sack. One afternoon, I stopped by during a delivery run, the truck's engine still humming as I parked. The house was eerily silent. I found him in bed, eyes shut, chest motionless. My breath hitched, I touched his hand cold, rigid. Panic hit, then grief, thick and suffocating. I grabbed my phone and called Sandra. "Dad's gone," I said, voice breaking. "Please come home just today." A pause, then her sigh. "Sorry, Neil, I can't. Band practice is critical. The kids need me more." I stared at the wall, anger surging. "My dad just died, Sandra. You helped with him." She snapped back. "You begged me to. My students matter more." The line went dead. I stood there, phone trembling in my hand, the quiet deafening. My fingers shook as I dialed 911, reciting the address mechanically. Paramedics arrived, confirmed it, and left me with a death certificate and an ache that wouldn't quit. The funeral blurred by handshakes, murmured sympathies, casseroles stacking up in the fridge. Sandra arrived late, sliding into the back, her face blank. Afterward, she bolted to the car, phone out. I lingered by the grave, the dirt fresh, lilies heavy in the air. I wanted to scream, to grab her, but I was drained, empty. That night she strolled in at 9, tossed her bag down, and headed for the shower. I slumped at the kitchen table, a beer dripping condensation in my hand. "You gonna ask about Dad?" I muttered. She paused, glanced back. "Oh, sorry about that," she said, casual as if she'd forgotten dinner. Then she disappeared, the shower humming. I stared at the table, vision swimming. Something broke inside me. I snatched her phone from her bag, tapped in her pennied, watched her use it countless times, and opened her texts. "Lloyd, Coach, today was amazing. Let's try that thing next time I'll get it." Her reply, "Totally, can't wait to see you." Then, "Neil's such a loser. Lousy in bed too. I only married him for appearances. Wish I could be with you. About Dad? Just some old guy, don't care." Nausea hit me. I gripped the phone, knuckles white, fury and shame roaring through me. When she emerged, towel wrapped, I stood, voice low. "You're cheating. I saw everything. I've got proof." She smirked. "Oh, you saw that? Too bad it's not enough to prove anything." Her laugh cut like glass. "Did you think I loved you? You were a convenient mask. I feel nothing for you." I balled my fist. "I was a fool to trust you. This is over, I'll make you pay." Her smirk held firm. The night I couldn't face Sandra, Dad's diagnosis weighed on me like a stone. The doctor's words looped in my mind. Stage 4 lung cancer. A year, maybe less. Dad had sat there, his jaw clenched, his voice a gravelly rasp as he refused hospice. "I'm dying at home," he'd said, stubborn to the end. Mom had been gone 5 years, felled by a stroke, and I'd been a wreck then. Skipping classes, mouthing off. I owed him better this time. So I arranged hospice nurses. But after my delivery shifts, I'd drive to his suburban house. The air inside stung with antiseptic, undercut by the sour hint of decay. The place felt hollowed out, mourning him already. Dad's room was dim, heavy curtains choking out the daylight. I'd sit beside his bed, the television flickering with old westerns. He loved grainy cowboys and dusty shootouts. "You remember this one?" He'd rasp, a bony finger stabbing at the screen. I'd nod, forcing a smile, though the plots blurred together. It wasn't about the movies. It was about staying close, tethering him to something he knew. Sandra pitched in when I begged her breezing in to fluff his pillows or sort his pills with clipped efficiency. But her eyes stayed locked on her phone, thumb swiping, a faint smile tugging at her lips. I'd catch her texting in the doorway, Dad's labored breaths a background hum she ignored. "You okay?" I'd ask, my voice tight. She'd glance up, startled. "Yeah, just work," she'd mutter, slipping the phone away. I swallowed the suspicion gnawing at me. One evening, I was spooning soup into Dad's mouth, the broth dribbling down his chin. Sandra was in the kitchen, supposedly brewing tea. Then I heard either low, intimate laugh. My grip tightened on the spoon. "Who's that?" Dad mumbled, eyes half closed. I wiped his chin, shrugging it off. "Probably a student. Band. Stuff." He nodded, gaze drifting back to the television. But the sound stuck with me. I set the bowl down and stepped into the kitchen. Sandra leaned against the counter, phone in hand, fingers dancing over the screen. "Who are you texting?" I asked, sharper than I meant. She met my stare, eyebrows arching. "A parent. About the competition." Her tone dared me to push. I didn't, just nodded, jaw clenched, and went back to Dad. Months crawled by, and Dad withered, his skin sagging, his frame shrinking. One afternoon, I swung by during a delivery run, the truck's engine still rumbling as I parked. The house was too quiet. I found him in bed, eyes shut, chest still, my breath caught. I touched his hand, cold stiff. Panic surged, then grief, heavy and choking. I fumbled for my phone and called Sandra. "Dad's gone," I said, voice cracking. "Please come home just today." A beat of silence, then her sigh. "Sorry, Neil, I can't. Band practice is critical. The kids need me more." I stared at the wall, anger flaring. "My dad just died, Sandra. You helped with him." Her reply was, "Ice. You begged me to. My students matter more." The call cut off. I stood there, phone shaking, the silence roaring. My hands trembled as I dialed 911, reciting the address like a robot. Paramedics came, confirmed it, and left me with the death certificate and a raw, endless ache. The funeral passed in a haze, handshakes, soft condolences, casseroles piling up in the fridge. Sandra showed up late, slipping into the back, her face a blank mask. Afterward, she darted to the car, phone already out. I stayed by the grave, the fresh dirt sharp with the scent of lilies. I wanted to yell, to shake her, but I was spent. That night, she sauntered in at 9, dropped her bag, and headed for the shower. I slumped at the kitchen table, a beer sweating in my hand. "You gonna ask about Dad?" I muttered. She paused, glanced back. "Oh, sorry about that," she said, light as if she'd forgotten a chore. Then she vanished, the shower's hiss filling the space. I stared at the table, eyes blurring. Something snapped. I grabbed her phone from her bag, punched in her pin. He'd seen her use it 100 times, and opened her texts. "Lloyd, Coach, today was amazing. Let's try that thing next time I'll get it." Her reply, "Totally. Can't wait to see you." Then, "Neil's such a loser. Lousy in bed, too. I only married him for appearances. Wish I could be with you." About Dad? Just some old guy, don't care. Bile rose in my throat. I gripped the phone, knuckles white, rage and humiliation crashing through me. When she stepped out, towel around her, I stood, voice low. "You're cheating. I saw everything. I've got proof." She smirked. "Oh, you saw that? Too bad it's not enough to prove anything." Her laugh sliced through me. "Did you think I loved you? You were a convenient mask. I feel nothing for you." I clenched my fists. "I was a fool to trust you. This is over, I'll make you pay." Her smirk didn't waver. The study was my sanctuary, a dimly lit cave of bookshelves and memories. But tonight it felt like a war room. The desk lamp cast a harsh glow over the scattered evidence. Grainy photos of Sandra and Lloyd, timestamped text messages glowing on my phone screen, a map of her late-night routes I'd painstakingly traced. Each item was a brick in the wall of betrayal she'd built around me. My hands trembled as I arranged them, not from fear, but from the fury simmering beneath my skin. Weeks of suspicion had led to this proof that the woman I'd loved had traded me for a kid barely old enough to shave. Downstairs, the front door creaked open, followed by the clatter of Sandra's keys hitting the hall table. Her laughter floated up, light and carefree, slicing through me like a blade. That sound used to mean home. Now it was a taunt, a reminder of everything I'd lost. I gripped the edge of the folder, the paper crinkling under my fingers, and waited. Her footsteps approached, steady and unhurried, until she appeared in the doorway. She wore that red blouse I'd always liked, her hair swept over one shoulder, a picture of casual beauty. Her smile faltered when she saw me, the folder in my hands an unspoken accusation. "What's that?" she asked, her tone breezy but her eyes narrowing, a predator sensing a trap. "This," I said, my voice low and controlled, "is everything. Every lie you've told, every secret you've kept. I know about Lloyd." The color drained from her face, leaving her skin ashen against the red fabric. For a heartbeat, the room was silent, the air thick with anticipation. Then she laughed a sharp, jagged sound that grated against my nerves. You think you're so clever, don't you, Neil? Playing detective, digging through my life like some sad little man with nothing better to do? I had to know, I said, my grip tightening until my knuckles whitened. I had to see it for myself. She crossed her arms, her smirk returning like armor snapping into place. And what's your big plan now? You going to cry to your daddy about it? Oh, wait. Her lips twisted cruelly. He's not around to save you anymore, is he? The mention of Dad hit me like a fist to the chest, knocking the air from my lungs. Don't you dare bring him into this, I snarled, stepping toward her. This is about you and me. Is it? She shot back, her voice rising. Or is it about your fragile ego? You couldn't handle that I found someone who actually makes me happy. Happy? I barked a laugh, bitter and raw. With Lloyd? That kid's barely out of high school. That's your idea of happiness? He's more of a man than you'll ever be, she hissed, leaning in, her eyes blazing. He knows how to make me feel alive, something you've never managed. Her words were venom, seeping into every crack of my resolve, burning away the last threads of restraint. You're a liar and a cheat, I said, my voice shaking with the effort to keep it steady. And I'm going to make sure everyone sees you for what you are. She took a step closer, her gaze locked on mine, daring me. You think you can ruin me? I'll tear you apart before you get the chance. I held up the folder, its weight a weapon in my hands. I've got proof. Photos of you two, messages, dates, everything. I'll send it to your school, to Lloyd's parents, to every single person who matters. You're done. Her smirk wavered, a flicker of doubt breaking through her defiance. You wouldn't, she whispered, but it wasn't a challenge, it was fear. Try me, I said, my voice, ice, cold, unyielding. She lunged for the folder, her fingers clawing at it, but I yanked it back. Don't, I warned, stepping out of reach. It's too late for that. She froze, her chest heaving, her eyes searching mine for a way out. What do you want, Neil? Her tone softened, a desperate edge creeping in. Money? A divorce? Tell me what it'll take. I want you to suffer, I said, the words spilling out like poison, tasting bitter on my tongue. I want you to feel what I've felt every day since I found out. Her laugh was hollow, a ghost of her earlier bravado. You think this will fix you? It won't. You'll still be the same pathetic, lonely man you've always been. Maybe, I conceded, meeting her gaze, but I'll sleep better knowing you're ruined. She turned away, her shoulders trembling. I thought she might be crying, but when she faced me again, her eyes were dry, her expression hard. Do it, she said, her voice flat. I dare you. I hesitated, the enormity of my next move pressing down on me. But then I saw Dad's face in my mind, his cold, still hand in the hospital bed, Sandra's indifference at his funeral, the messages that had shattered my world. Fine, I said, my resolve hardening. Consider it done. The next morning, I drove to Lloyd's house, the steering wheel slick under my sweaty palms. The suburban street was quiet, lined with tidy homes and manicured lawns, a lie of perfection that hid the ugliness beneath. I parked outside a modest two-story house, a basketball hoop dangling over the garage, the air heavy with the scent of cut grass. Lloyd opened the door, his lanky frame filling the entrance. His face went white when he saw me. Mr. Thompson, he stammered, his voice cracking. What are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, shoving past him into the house before he could protest. He trailed me into the living room, his hands fidgeting, his eyes darting like a cornered animal's. Look, I don't know what you think you know. Save it, I snapped, cutting him off. I know everything. You and Sandra, all of it. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing nervously. It was a mistake, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for it to happen. A mistake? I laughed, the sound harsh and unforgiving. You've been sleeping with my wife for months, and you call it a mistake? I'm sorry, he said, his head bowing. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, I said, stepping closer, my shadow falling over him. You're going to pay for what you did. His eyes widened, panic flaring. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure everyone knows, I said, my voice low and deliberate. Your parents, your friends, every college you've applied to, you'll be finished. Please, he begged, his voice breaking, tears glistening in his eyes. Don't do this. I'll do anything. I leaned in, close enough to see the fear etched into his features. Anything? He nodded frantically, a sob catching in his throat. Then disappear, I said, my tone final. Leave town, leave the state. I don't care where. Just make sure I never see you again. Okay, he whispered, wiping at his eyes. I'll go, I promise. I turned and walked out, the door slamming shut behind me with a satisfying thud. As I drove away, a strange cocktail of triumph and hollowness churned in my gut. I'd won this battle, but the war had left me scarred. Back home, the silence was deafening. Sandra was gone, her closet emptied, her presence erased, save for the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. I wandered through the house, each room a mausoleum of memory slaughter, fights, quiet nights that now felt like lies. In the study, I found a photo of Dad on the shelf, his smile warm and unchanging, a relic of a time before all this. I picked it up, my fingers tracing the frame. I did it, Dad, I whispered, my voice hoarse. I made them pay. But as I stared into his eyes, I didn't see approval. I saw sorrow, a quiet judgment that cut deeper than Sandra's betrayal. I'd torn lives of Parthers, Lloyd's, my own end for what? A fleeting sense of victory that crumbled under the weight of my loneliness? I set the photo down, my hands shaking, the anger that had driven me replaced by a vast aching emptiness. I'd won, but the cost was everything I'd once held dear. I sat in my car, the engine off, the dashboard lights casting a dim glow over my hands still gripping the steering wheel. The parking lot stretched out empty around me, dotted with a few lonely cars under flickering street lamps. Dusk had crept in, painting the sky a bruised purple that matched the dull ache throbbing in my chest. My knuckles stood out white against the wheel, skin stretched tight over bone. Slowly, I unclenched my fingers, one by one, and let out a shaky breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. The confrontation with Sandra looped in my head, her smug smirk, my voice breaking with fury, the folder of evidence hitting the table with a thud. It was done now, but the wind tasted bitter, like ashes settling on my tongue. Leaning back, I felt the seat groan under me. Exhaustion sank into my bones, heavy and unyielding. For weeks, months, even I'd been running on rage and betrayal, chasing this moment. Now that it was over, the fire had sputtered out, leaving me hollow and cold. What had I won? Sandra was out of my life, her lies laid bare, her world crumbling. Lloyd was scrambling, his future stained by his own dumb choices. I'd come out on top, hadn't I? But staring through the windshield, the world smearing into a blur of unshed tears, I felt a gnawing loss I couldn't pin down. Dad's face flickered into my thoughtless, sad, steady eyes staring from that old photo. I told myself I did this for him, to right the wrongs, to punish their disrespect. But with the chaos behind me, I wondered if he'd be proud, or just see me as another wrecked soul swinging at shadows. I scrubbed my face, stubble scraping my palms. The future loomed ahead, vast and unknown. No more Sandra, no more deception, but no more late-night talks, or familiar routines, either. Just me, parked here, alone, with my racing mind. A car rolled past, headlights slicing through the gloom, throwing long shadows across the lot. I watched its taillights fade around the corner into the deepening twilight. Maybe I should do that vanish, start over somewhere else. The idea loomed like a cliff's edge, thrilling and terrifying all at once. But under the weight of uncertainty, something else stirred relief, maybe, or the barest hint of hope. I was free now, cut loose from her poison. I could piece myself back together, bit by bit, my way. It wouldn't be simple, but it could be done. I twisted the key, and the engine growled awake. Pulling out of the lot, I watched the street lamps streak into lines of light, pointing me ahead. The road was dark, stretching into the unknown, but for the first time in forever, a faint spark of peace flickered inside me.